Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
And I'm Alex.
and today reviewing More Scared of You Than You Are of Me by the Smith Street Band. So, I searched this band up. I have not heard of them. They make they're not as well known, but they're pretty decent punk rock musicians, and their last couple albums have been really good, rating wise. I searched it up, and it was produced by Jeff Rosenstock, who released one of my favorite albums of last year, Worry. And it got me even more excited for this album, because Jeff Rosenstock is known for his just fantastic punk rock music. And
I found that out after the fact as well. And Worry is good, and so is what was the other one before that? Note, I can't remember, but that one was that one was really good as well. It had like Nausea and Hey Allison on it. He's made some of the best punk songs in recent times. I was a bit interested to see how he'd do production-wise, because I had no idea he was a producer of any kind, so that was what interested me about this.
Oh, it was We Cool.
Yeah, that's a great album.
That is a really good album, too. But, so I like Jeff Rosenstock, and I was really excited to hear about this album, because I'm a big fan of punk rock. There hasn't been a stand-up punk rock album this year for me, at least, and I was hoping that this would be it, so I dove in, and oh baby, was this a joy all the way through. The vocalist can be angry and impassioned and upset when he wants to, but he can also be laid back or stripped back and somber and more reflective when he wants to. His songs are very dynamic. He talks about many things, and it's sequenced, I would say, almost perfectly, to the point where, like, he's aggressive for 2 songs and you need that break, so he gives you that break with a more maybe mainstream or retrospective song. I just love this album all the way through.
Before we talk about any songs, do you want to rate Jeff's production? What did you think of it overall?
I loved it. I had no problems with the production of this album.
I had a slight problem with it, and okay, Jeff's production on at least 3/4 of this was amazing, but sometimes I felt like he was out of his depth and he got too much into the process, like he had too much fun with it, which is good. A producer that's having fun will become more invested with the music, and that means the music will benefit from that, because he has some creative involvement, probably, because it sounds like that. But the song Shine, which is a good song, but Jeff and the boys, the production here isn't actually that good, because they have vocals, they have guitars, drums, other percussion, supposedly bass, even though you can't hear it, and then it has what sounds like a female choir and strings, and that's just too much to have in one song. Like, that's at least 8 elements together. That's too busy, that's too messy. It still is good, because it's a good song, but I just thought at some points on this album, Jeff's production got a bit too messy and busy for my liking. Maybe not for you.
No, I liked how it was aggressive and it was busy and loud at some times, but then it did cut back to other parts when it wasn't as interesting, or as it was interesting but not as bombastic.
I just thought that this when I think of punk music, and obviously punk has evolved beyond the point of being some guys in the garage really lo-fi, but I just thought it was too cluttered and messy for its own good, basically.
Yeah. So what were some of your favorite songs on here?
There were plenty, and the thing with this is that there are many lyrics on here that the whole thing is really clever the whole way through lyrically, and you could quote any lines on here and you could talk about them. Death to the Lads was a really really fun song.
Yeah, that was super catchy, super upbeat. The message was good. It was about, like, lads dying, which is a metaphor for growing up and becoming a man. He says how like we always look forward to growing up, but it's not all that it's made out to be. So enjoy being a child when you are. You don't want to just grow up and become a boring adult.
And I think this held weight with us, because I think we're both at the age where we both could not be a lad much longer, Kush. Oh no. So, and it had one of my favourite lines of the year with, "Things get better, but they never get good," which is so true for most people's lives. Like, I'm not going to talk about the situation I'm in right now. Things have gotten better since last night with my laptop not working so well. but they haven't. But they haven't gotten good yet. So right now, that line means a hell of a lot to me, like more than when I was listening to it. So, and he spends like spending the night in a room of arseholes means I'm one too. It's so funny and clever as well.
I think some of the best songs are when he talks about his mental illnesses, because he is so raw and open about them, and something you can really connect to, especially someone like me who has struggled with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
I can really relate to those kind of things. He puts it on his sleeves. He tells us how it is, and he doesn't like sugarcoat it and say it's gonna get better, because he's like, it's gonna be shit. Your life is shit, and it's gonna be bad, but you have to make the best of it, because you're not gonna sit there and complain. You can't sit there and complain about it.
Well, even the quote I mentioned earlier, things get better, but they don't get good. That's the same thing, basically. Life is shit. It Kills Me to Be Alive is where more of the folk sound comes out of punk, more than punk, but it's nice to have variety on the album, and all the songs on here, even if they start folk, they add the punk halfway through, so that's kind of predictable.
Yeah, that song was probably one of my favorites, because he talks about like he's depressed, he's not feeling loved. He gets frustrated over the same sort of things over and over again. He has these damage checks where he talks about like, I keep tripping over the same spot in the floor, which is like, I think it's a metaphor, like getting frustrated over the same things.
Yeah.
And he says he doesn't feel loved, but he also blames himself. He says he's not lovable, and people don't love him because it's his fault, which is something we talked about in the Karen Elson review too. But it's so heartbreaking to hear him talk about this, and he's so open about it. And there isn't really a traditional strong structure to it. It's kind of all over the place, but it's still really, really enjoyable to listen to.
Also, this whole album, I thought, lyrically, was really similar to Worry by Jeff, because I had a lot of songs about, and Jeff is like 35, which I'm guessing is a bit older than this guy. Will Wagner is the lead vocalist here. He's also talking about having to grow up to be a proper adult on Worry, like those songs on that. And 25 is a good song dealing with life at 25 up till that point. Like, stopped smoking and remembering his life. And he does talk about being in the passenger seat up until you're 25, which is true for most people. Like, you'll be in the
I think
parents.
25 was a fun song, mainly because he's talking about like how his mom had him at 25, and he's sitting here trying to start a band at 25. And I think it's a really good introspective on the dynamic of what 25 is for everyone, because at that age people expect you to be an adult, but a lot of people don't feel like adults at 25. They still feel like in their teenage years, because it's a really weird transitioning age around 25, and I think he does a really good job of complementing that with his lyrics.
Well, you're still a young guy where you could go to the clubs and nobody would bat an eyelid, and you could also be like a head of a company, maybe not quite, but you could be quite high up. It's like the point where people's lives can really get different from like 20. Most people's lives around the age are probably fairly similar, even if they're in completely different places. I know that doesn't really make sense, but you know what I mean. I agree, 25. You could still feel like a teenager at that age, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I found the lyric. It was in the song Passiona.
Right.
I think I'm saying that right. He says, "So I sit in the band room, start fights to get attention from you." That line hit me so hard. So hard. Like, I don't know. Like, I've talked about my girlfriend before in these reviews, and I feel like I have this conflict where I feel like I'm not the best boyfriend ever, and I'm not doing things right. And that line, it made me realize, because I feel like I do start these fights just so she will talk to me, and just so like someone will bat me attention. And I think it's just a conflict of like mental issues, and just trying to feel more loved than you really are, but it does just really strain the relationship. And I feel like that stuff is on me. That's my fault. I'm doing it. And so to hear someone else talking about it, it really did just hit home and say like, this is something that happens to people, something people do, and it's not healthy, but like, you shouldn't be beating yourself up saying that you're the worst person in the world for doing it.
Wow, Kush, these reviews are turning more into therapy sessions as the sessions go on. They actually are, in a way. It's kind of It's kind of good in a way, though.
I just think this is a really good song, especially for me who can relate so well to this kind of stuff. That's why even the smaller like production issues like on Young Ones, that fade out at the end was so long and drawn out, but it didn't really affect me because the song itself is really good.
So I've complained about the production issues before, but this is not one of them. This feels intentionally lo-fi, like he brought a demo in at the start, because Will says, like, go for it to the Jeff vocalist guy. So it sounds like intentional lo-fi production. But then, this song's like talking about we were young once, so was everyone. So that's quite an interesting topic.
I was really impressed with this album. The song "Suffer" was probably his most angry song.
I thought it was more funny than angry, because he says things like, "I want to fuck everybody in the supermarket."
I think at least from what I got, he's angry in the sense because he's always talking about how people like focus on the negatives and like forget about the positives. I think he's talking to someone because like I would say I like that problem resonates with a lot of people in the sense like, oh, they never feel good enough and they feel like the things that they have amounted to are nothing because people will always be like, oh, you haven't done this yet, or you still haven't done this, but they don't really acknowledge or appreciate the things that they have already done.
Oh my god, I have a friend. He works in a retail store and he has a boss he talks to me a lot about who gets him down, who like does the exact same as that. He like does so much for the company, but a lot of the stuff he doesn't do because he doesn't have time because they're understaffed, he gets caught up for. So I think it's true for a lot of people in different circumstances.
Yeah, these lyrics were super relatable and super well written, I think.
Definitely.
That's what made this album so great. The last song, "Laughing" or "Pretending to Laugh," is not even a punk song. It's just like a singer-songwriter song.
Yeah, that's where the folk comes in more than the punk, because this is listed as folk punk, which I guess is what it is, basically.
And it's really lighthearted, but he's talking about some like the really sweet ode to some girl. And one of the lines of my favorite, he says, "And I don't want to marry you just yet, although it probably helped me with my visa," which I just died laughing.
So much of this is so clever.
It is really, really clever, and it's definitely underrated, underappreciated band. I think they have something really well going for them, and I'm really impressed by what they have made so far.
I haven't even talked about my favourite song, which is "Psalm for You." He says, like, I just want you to let me love you, and then he says, I just wanted you to let me love you. Like, it's such a small passage of time, but it says so much. It feels like a whole relationship has gone from existent to non-existent in like 5 seconds, just from those change of one word in that sentence. And he says more than that sentence than like whole breakup albums, I'd say, just by the way he says it.
Yeah. He has that punky, aggressive vocal style, but he also has that beaten down, emotional vocal style, which he is very good at switching between when he needs to.
This is such a playful album, I'd say. It's really playful.
One more song is "Run Into the World," which is talking about like self-destructive behaviors and so on. He keeps repeating, "I'm glad we're not dead. I'm glad we're not dead," and I think because he's talked about like suicidal depressive states, and I think he says things like that because he wants to show like there's a reason to keep on living, but it comes off as a joke because he doesn't want it to seem like a serious issue, and I don't want to call it a joke because it definitely isn't, but that's the way he portrays it in the song, and it's terrifying how he can joke about it and yet still struggle at the same time.
Yeah, this is such a cathartic and crazy song to me. It's nearly 5 minutes, but he gets so much said in that time. Well, only 5 minutes is actually quite long for punk. Like, usually it's 2 minutes-ish.
Oh, punk is so short, yeah.
But a lot of this album's actually quite long. Like, I think 4 minutes is more the average. So, but none of these songs feel that long because they're so enjoyable to listen to the whole way through, I'd say. And this song has, like, guest vocals from Laura Stevenson and Tim Rogers. And they're pretty good towards the end. Add some vocal dynamics, which you don't actually get much of here.
Yeah, the only song which I felt was a little bit bland to me was "Shine."
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about that had the real production problem, I'd say. Like, too much at the end. 8 instruments at once. It's too much, man. Too much for me.
I didn't have a problem with the production. And the chorus was good too. I just felt they became a bit too formulaic punk rock at that point.
Yeah, it's more of a generic, fast-paced punk song than anything
And you can
else.
tell that was one of their more filler songs as opposed to some of their more interesting, more introspective songs.
Yeah.
But it was still a good song. I'm not gonna complain.
We don't complain here. Well, unless the album's bad.
What would you rate it, Alex?
8.5. This is an exceptional album. Really clever, really funny, really heartbreaking at points, and really thought-provoking. Exceptional lyrics, performances. Jeff's Rosenstock's production is really good at most points. I'd say this is as good as Worry by Jeff, as far as a good punk album goes. So yeah, 8.5, I really liked it. It's one of the best. I keep saying one of the best of the year. When we do our year-end lists, we'll see what actually resonates with me more, but this is definitely the best punk album of the year, I've heard, even though I've only heard like 3, but yeah, good job, lads.
I mean, 2017 it has been a relatively good year for music, I would say.
Relatively, but I think by this point, 2016 had more good albums. I don't know, it's hard to compare.
Yeah. For me, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I would say this is just about as good as Worry. There were really, really good punky styles, punky elements, some good music, some good stuff, a lot of good stuff. I said nothing in the last 10 seconds.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff, it's true.
Yeah, it was a good album. There was a lot of emotional, heartbreaking moments and a lot of fun, almost anthemic moments with like the song Death to the Lads. And
Oh.
honestly, I can't really say much more about it because it was just a good album. The only thing I'd complain about is that it does get a bit generic punk rock at some points, like songs Shine and Passionate. But they're still really good songs and really, and on their own they'd probably sound much better than the album context. But this whole album was a blast to listen to.
And it would be a 9 out of
So,
10 from me. A 9 out of 10 from me if I liked the production, if I felt like it was less busy, messy on some of these songs. Actually, only like 1 or 2, but that'd be enough to go up to a 9 out of 10, I'd say.
So yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. If you enjoy this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out our other videos. Check out some of our other videos. Check us out on social media, and have a great day, guys.
And check out the album.